and welcome to episode 24 of the Cozy Cottage Crochet podcast. My name is Hannah and I am coming to you on this fine St. Patrick's Day from St. Petersburg, Florida in the United States where I live. You can find me on the interweb as the Cozy Cottage Crochet, although I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook. But if you have any questions or inquiries related to the podcast specifically, please shoot me an email. There's a very good chance that I may not see your message or on Ravelry or Instagram. I try to keep up with them, but sometimes there's a lot. So if you want to get a hold of me about the podcast, please shoot me an email to thecozycottagecrochet@gmail.com and I will do my absolute best to get right back to you. How are you? If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much. It's been too long. 3 weeks is too long to go without seeing you and chatting with you. If you are a new viewer, thanks so much for stopping by. I hope that you enjoy spending a little bit of crafty time with me. We have so much to cover today, but first and most importantly, if you are celebrating St. Patrick's Day today, you should also know that it is not just St. Patrick's Day. He shares a day with Saint Gertrude, who is the patron saint of cats. Cats and people who love them. So if you have a cat or you love cats, know that St. Patty's Day shares a day with St. Gertrude. I think that that's fabulous and everyone should know that. Before we jump into yarny bits, I have a little bit of administrative things to take care of. Number one, the giveaway that I announced the last episode for Quaylin Stark's pattern collection. The winner of that giveaway did not contact me and it has been 3 weeks. So I have drawn a new winner for this. And I'm really excited because the person who popped up is someone who just started her own crochet podcast recently. It's just 4 episodes up. And Sam from the Sam Squeak podcast, you are the winner. So if you could please shoot me an email or just message me. I know we're friends on Instagram. I will get your information over to Quaylin and he can get that pattern collection over to you. For everyone else, it is a pattern collection with 2 patterns, one in a bulky weight and one in a fingering weight granny triangle shawls. And I made one. I love it. I've worn it several times since I made it. It was an absolute dream to work with. And Quaylin has his own podcast called the Quo Podcast, which you should definitely check out because he's fabulous. The second thing I want to mention is that we have a crochet along going on currently with the Knitted Knockers Cal. I'll put the hashtag down below for Instagram. You can check out all of the details on my Ravelry group, which if you search in Ravelry, it's the Cozy Cottage Crochet podcast group. We are making crocheted and knitted knockers or boobs for the charity organization Knitted Knockers. Now they provide completely 100% free breast implant, well not implants, but prosthetics basically. You can stuff them in your bra that are made out of washable 100% cotton usually or a cotton acrylic blend yarn. And they're provided 100% free to women who have had breast cancer and have either had a mastectomy, a double mastectomy, a lumpectomy, something like that. So all of the details are in the Ravelry group. This cal is currently going on. There have already been some awesome finished objects posted in the thread in Ravelry, and I've seen some on Instagram as well. So if you are still undecided as to whether you want to join this cal, you still have time. I am going to host this cal until the end of April. So it's going to be an 8-week cal total, March 1st through the end of April. Now there are very specific yarns that you need to use because of course if you've had surgery or anything like that, you know that skin area will be very sensitive. They need to be able to be washable, etc. So all of the details are in my Ravelry group, but I wanted to let you know that if you have not gotten your yarn yet, you have a fantastic opportunity because my local yarn store, which is Stash, a place for yarn, their website is Stash St. Pete, and I'll put their link down in the drop down below so you can click on it. She has given me a coupon code. Kristen, the owner. Hi, Kristen. She has 2 kinds of yarn that are on the approved yarn list. One is the Barocco Cotton DK, which is good for crochet, and one is the Kobasi DK, yarn, which is good for knitting. They're both 100% cotton, and she has given a coupon code. She has about, I think, 10 or 11 skeins left of the Barocco Cotton DK. I'm not sure how much of the Kobasi, but more than a couple of skeins. And she's given us a coupon code. So if you have not bought your yarn yet, you can actually use the code Cozy Cottage Knockers, all one word, all lowercase. I'll put it down in the drop down below as well. And that will give you 50% off of those yarns. And she ships. So if you don't live in St. Petersburg, you can actually just still get 50% off, and you can have it shipped to your house. So I think that that's first of all, that's a fantastic deal. Second of all, it will enable us to make even more knockers. We have some fabulous prizes, and some more came in over the last couple of weeks, which I will show you at the end of this episode. So stick around for that. But definitely go check out Stash St. Pete. Use that 50% off coupon. Just so you know, the coupon is only good for those yarns because she's specifically supporting this charity crochet along. So I'm really excited. I have started one, which I'll talk about in my works in progress. I did something wrong, so I'm gonna have to rip back a little, but the pattern is really easy. It was totally because I was drinking wine and not paying attention to what I was doing. That is why I messed up. So that is administrative thing number 2. And then finally, let's talk about what I am wearing, because the squirrely-eyed among you will notice that this is my Treasure Island shawl. This is the worsted weight version. I made a fingering weight and a worsted weight. This is in Karen Simply Soft. Soft green is the color, so nobody pinch me. I'm wearing green, okay, on St. Patty's Day. I am wearing this, number 1, because it's kind of cold outside. I don't know what happened. It's never this cold in March in Florida, but it's a little bit cold. And also, my pattern, the Treasure Island shawl, is now live on Ravelry, so you can get it. I am going to talk about this at the end of the episode kind of extensively. I've had quite a few questions from people about the design process and how do you get it tech edited and how did I come up with the idea, etc., etc. So I will spend some time talking about this at the end of the episode, but for now, just know that the Treasure Island shawl is live. The pattern is live. Some people have already made it, and it just fills my heart with joy to know that people are making this pattern and loving it. Thank you so much to everyone who has gotten the pattern. It really, really brings me so much happiness. And I love this shawl. It's one of my favorites. Okay, so without further ado, let's talk about finished objects. I have 2. Unfortunately, I don't have either of them to show you physically because they have both gone to their new homes. But you did see them in the last episode as works in progress. So the first one was the second unicorn hat that I was making. So I showed you the one last time that I had made in purple. And then I was still working on the one that was in hot pink. And I'll insert a picture of that here. This hat I finished the next day. After I podcast, I finished this hat and mailed it out on Monday to its new owner, who loves it. I mean, it's a unicorn hat. What's not to love? I've talked at length about the pattern. I made the entire thing out of Red Heart Super Saver yarn. The pattern was very well written. It goes from an infant size all the way up to an adult size, and it was $7, I believe I paid for it on Etsy. It's the Crochet Pony Hat pattern by Bree Abbey Designs, and I think it's worth $7 because I made 2 hats already from that, and you can make them like from a tiny little baby up. Like I could make one for myself. That's how big the hat pattern goes. It's very clearly written. It's just a little bit of a pain to sew everything together. So that is the problem, of course, always with character hats, is that you make them in pieces and then you have to assemble them. And assembly, it's kind of like seaming up a garment at the end. It's just like you just want it to be done. But the pattern itself, if you are looking for a unicorn hat pattern, I think it's adorable. And every little girl I know would be thrilled to have one of those. So that's all I'm going to say about the unicorn hat. I'll talk about my second finished object because we talked about this last time. I was kind of modifying a pattern, which was a free pattern online by Brittany from Bee Hooked Crochet. This is what hers looked like. This is the fall crochet poncho. It was originally a crochet along on her website, and so I just kind of took this pattern, and what I did was the person I was making it for, because it was a commission, she didn't want fringe, and I knew this pattern is kind of a 4-corner poncho. I knew she didn't want 4 corners, she only wanted 2. So I had 1 corner in the front, 1 corner in the back, and then it went up to the elbows right here. I really loved making this poncho. In fact, I loved it so much that I was done with it in about 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half. I feel like I finished it a few days after I podcasted, and I had only had maybe 5 or 6 more rows left. So you all remember that I was using Loops and Threads wool-like yarn held double. So this yarn, this is the color charcoal, and then I made it in navy. So all of these solid pieces, that is the navy, and then the lace portion right here, I made in silver. So it was just a blue and silver striped. I used only 4 balls, which I thought was pretty good. And I have this much left in the navy in each ball and this much left in the silver. So I could get another whole project out of this, maybe not another poncho, but I have sung the praises of Loops and Threads wool-like yarn before. It's the only fingering weight yarn that I know of that is currently sold in big box stores that is that cheap. This yarn is normally $3 a ball, maybe $4 if it's not on sale. $3 for 700 yards of yarn almost? That's crazy, and it washes up beautifully. I have made 3 or 4 projects with that yarn now, and I just have no complaints. It's durable because it's acrylic and nylon, and it's so soft. Like, it's so soft. In fact, I wouldn't even say that it's wool-like because wool is not quite as soft as that yarn is, most wool. So that was a fantastic project as well, which has gone to its owner. So I can't show you that either. But, and honestly, I completely forgot to take good pictures of this poncho. I snapped a couple when it was finished to send to the person who had ordered it from me. So I sent her those photos, and then I saw her pretty soon after that, and I wrapped it up and gave it to her, and I completely forgot to take like a normal photo or a photo of me wearing it or something like that. So I'm gonna insert a picture, but you know, it's not the best quality picture. But I do recommend that if you are looking for a lightweight, lacy kind of a poncho, that you use the crochet fall poncho. Held double, that fingering weight yarn would probably be a DK weight yarn, and she calls for a worsted weight in the pattern, so I went up a hook size to get gauge. I used a 6.5 millimeter hook to get gauge, and it was just a wonderful project all around. Those are my 2 official finished objects, but I have a hoe. Now, if you don't know crochet terminology, an FO is a finished object. A hoe, or an HO, is a half object, meaning half of the project is done. Usually this applies to things that are done in sets of 2. So socks, mittens, things like that. A whip, in case you did not know, is a work in progress. And I have something to show you. And it is a finished sock. It didn't even take me until December. So, as you can see from this lovely llama corn stitch marker that my friend Claudia from the Crochet Luna podcast sent me, she also sent me the bag that it's living in. Cute popsicle bag. That is where I was in the last podcast. I was before the heel. I had just started the increases. And so I sat down and I got through the heel, which that was rough, you guys. Not because I don't I couldn't do the heel, but my fingers weren't working properly. So I got all the way through the heel, finally. I got through this before I went on the trip to the conference that I was at last week in Cleveland, Tennessee. So I got through the heel, and then I took a couple projects with me to the conference. Why, I don't know. Because the ones that I took, other than this one, required concentration, and I did not have any brain power to spare. So I knit a lot of this, and then I started the second one. So the reason that this was so difficult is because I haven't knit in years. Now I know how to knit, but when I learned to knit originally, I knit English style, which means I held the yarn in my right hand, and I was kind of a thrower, so I'd throw the yarn around the needle. Well, because I had not knit in so long, what I wanted to do when picking up knitting again is force myself to learn continental knitting, which means you hold the yarn in your left hand, which is perfect because as a crocheter, I hold the yarn in my left hand anyways. But I couldn't get my fingers to work. So the whole foot of this sock, I actually kind of finagled. So I had the tension in my left hand, but normally you would wrap the yarn over your pointer finger and then you'd knit like this. But I couldn't get my fingers to work. I just didn't have the muscle memory. So I ended up like rigging it basically for the foot until I got comfortable holding the yarn over my middle finger and using these two fingers to hold the actual knitting needles. Now, that's fine if you're going around and around in stockinette. That is not fine when you have to do purl stitches. Purling and continental, which I'm getting better at it now. I've built up a little bit of muscle memory. But you cannot do that if the yarn is wrapped around your middle finger because you have to bring the yarn in front of your needles. I couldn't bring the yarn in front of my needles with my middle finger. That doesn't work. There's a finger in the way. So I slowly got through the heel. You can see down at the bottom, it's like very fuzzy, and there was a lot of drama with this heel, not because of the pattern, just because I couldn't do it correctly. I'm using the Sockmatician's Toe Up sock recipe, which is fantastic, by the way. Nathan Taylor is a sock genius. So at the beginning of the heel, it looks pretty bad. But up at the top, it looks a lot better. And then once I got to the leg, I then started forcing myself to wrap the yarn over my pointer finger, which was very slow going for probably this many stripes. And then once I got up here, it finally clicked. And now when I pick up the knitting needles and the yarn, it just the yarn settles over my pointer finger without me thinking about it, which is what I wanted to happen. And then of course I did the knit 2, purl 2 rib that is called for. I don't know if I love a knit 2, purl 2 rib. I think I might actually like a knit 2, purl 1 rib better because this is it's a little floppy, and I did a horrible job on the cast off. Oh, it's so uneven and wonky. Some of the stitches are really tight and some of them are really loose, and it's just bad all around. But I have woven in my ends, and let me show you. This is the inside of the sock, in case you're wondering. Now, I crochet and knit very tightly, and just to prove that to you, I have a size 8, US 8 foot. Normally that would be like maybe a 64 inch sock, or 64 inch. 64 inch, that would be super tall. A 64 stitch sock. This is a 68 stitch sock, and it fits tightly, snugly around my foot. That is how tight my knit gauge is. So I don't know if you can tell, but that is really tight, which is fine with me because that means the sock is actually going to wear better. But that's just an example of how tightly I knit. So I have a finished sock. I don't have any sock blockers. This has not been washed or blocked. I don't even really know how to block it without a sock blocker. Maybe just lay it flat. And I did start the second one. which is all tangled up. This is what it looks like. I got all the toe increases done, and I'm about halfway up the foot. So, yeah, I got about half of a foot done. This is the only thing I was able to work on during the conference because, of course, I'm using my 9-inch circulars and it just goes around and around and around and around, and I don't have to think about it at all. And that's what I needed while I was listening to all kinds of presentations, etc. So the yarn that I'm using for this is Premier Yarns by Deborah Norville. It is the colorway Surf. It is a self-striping yarn. This is her Serenity sock yarn, which is 50% wool, 25% rayon, and 25% nylon. So I got tired of making this sock. I probably could have done with making the leg a little bit longer. This is how much I had left from the first ball. So I could have gotten some more yarn out of that. And then I just started on the second ball. I did my best to match them up, although this one is going to have a little bit more green at the toe than this one. But that's pretty close. I'm pretty happy with that. This yarn was so lovely and gifted to me by Kalisha, who is the author, crochet, knitwear designer extraordinaire behind the Quirky Monday Craft Cast, which if you don't know about Kalisha, you need to go on YouTube and search for the Quirky Monday Craft Cast. She does lots of knitted socks, tons of crochet garments, and all kinds of things in between. She makes up designs, she does sewing, she has an Etsy shop, all kinds of things like that. And one thing that I have been really fascinated by, because I've been watching her podcast for quite a while now, is recently, in the last couple of months, at the end of every podcast, she has a segment on the history or influence of fiber arts, knitting, crochet, spinning, weaving, etc. in Black culture. So if you just look at the crochet community or you look at the knitting community based on magazines or based on what the people that are pictured in patterns, mostly it's white people. It mostly is. And so she goes into the history of like people that have been really influential in the Black community in knitting and fiber arts, and I find that completely fascinating. So I have been like religiously watching her episodes recently to make sure that I don't miss that segment, because I think it's so interesting to see all of these designers and all of these people who have been so influential and have contributed so much that I've never heard of before. So I think it's fascinating. You should definitely check it out. Plus, she's just fabulous. Kalisha, I love you. Also, you're in Orlando? Yes? I'm in St. Pete? That is not that far away. We should hang out sometime. Okay, that's enough of sock talk. I don't know how much sock talk I'm going to get done in the next 2 weeks, because once I get to the heel, it's going to pause, I'm sure, just like it did last time. For about a month, I took off of that sock because I didn't want to face the heel. What I like about knitting the sock is the part that just goes around and around. It's mindless, it's repetitive, I don't have to think about it at all. And when there's the heel involved, I'm gonna have to think about it quite a lot. So who knows? I'm gonna get to the heel and probably quit for a while. But I'm encouraged because the progress that I have so far, I mean, it's March, it's the middle of March, but I have a whole finished sock. And my goal is to have one pair done by the end of the year this year. So I am ahead of schedule. All right, that's it for finished objects and half finished objects, but I do have some works in progress to talk about. One of them, I actually just only have touched this one time in 3 weeks. And it was yesterday that I pulled it out because I have been dying to work on this, but it's kind of a big project, so I didn't take it with me on my trip, and I can't really take it to work because it's just too big. So it's a home project, and I have been doing a lot of commissions and things like that, so I just haven't had time. It is my Habitat cardigan, which is a free pattern by Make and Do Crew. You can get it online. I'm still Even though I'm gonna show this to you, it really doesn't look that different from the last time I showed it to you because I'm still working on the giant rectangle. I have about 20 more rows on this rectangle. This is where I was yesterday when I started. So I've added this much, which is, I mean, that's pretty good for one day. I stopped halfway through a row. Why, I have no idea. But this is the Lion Brand Heartland yarn in the Cuyahoga Valley colorway, which is so pretty. So basically, once this rectangle is done and I seam it for the armholes, then I will be adding, see if I can do this. So you're gonna seam the armholes like this. So your arm's gonna come out. So it's kind of like a shrug for this portion only. And once it's seamed, then you add another section at the bottom on the butt side for, it's like an extension. So it has a low hem on the back, and then you start going around and around with a collar, with a ribbed collar. So you do like 30 rows of collar, I think. And then you add that you do sleeves separately, and then you seam them on. So I really, really hope that this is to the point of the collar, starting the collar next time I podcast, because I really, really want to make this. I want to wear it. I'm so happy with this. You can make your own too. It's a free pattern by Make and Do Crew called the Habitat Cardigan. It's a pretty fantastic pattern. I just, for some reason, have not been able to dedicate the amount of time that I want to this. I feel like I could have had this finished already if I had had more time to dedicate to it. But, you know, isn't that the story of our lives? There's never enough time. Too much yarn. Well, not too much. Let's say so much yarn, so little time. There's never too much yarn, is there? Even if you have a giant stash. Like, it's just so wonderful to have yarn. This is 2.5 balls of this yarn that I've used so far. I believe this is 100% acrylic. Let me look. Yes, 100% acrylic. You get 251 yards in 142 grams. So I have 3.5 balls of this yarn left. I don't think that's gonna be enough. I think I'm gonna need another ball. However, I'm gonna use up everything I have before I go buy another ball, just in case I'm able to get away with not having to buy more yarn. So that's my Habitat Cardigan. Fingers crossed I can get that giant rectangle done by the next time we talk. But wait, there's more. I have 3 more whips, and 2 of them I can show you. One is a commission, and it is the Comet pattern, Comet Mitts pattern by Tanja Oswald. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's got this cable detail. Someone had contacted me and wanted to know if I could make these, and I said yes, of course. So I am using Knit Picks Chroma yarn, Chroma fingering yarn, which is a 70% wool, 30% nylon yarn. Now, I haven't actually used this yarn before. I have 3 balls of it in my stash, 2 of which were a gift and 1 of which I purchased. But I just haven't had a chance to use them yet. It's a fingering weight yarn, and it's got long color stripes. So it's kind of a gradient, and it's beautiful. I don't know that this is the best yarn for these mitts because, and I didn't even know this until I started with this yarn, it has a thick, thin quality. So in some parts, the yarn is really thick for fingering, and in some parts, it's really thin, which makes it very difficult to get gauge on this mitten pattern. Because this is made using slip stitches. The whole thing is made using slip stitches. Now, it creates a beautiful fabric. Look at that. It's gorgeous. But if some of your rows are So let's say half of this row is skinny and half of it is a little bit bigger. Because the yarn is changing thickness, it makes it really hard to get gauge. So it's coming up a little bit small, this mitten. Now it is a ribbed pattern, so when you wear it, it's supposed to stretch like that. But I have added 2 rows already on the pattern, and I did seam this up. Well, I didn't seam it, I slip stitched it together to see if it would fit around my arm, and it was still, like, it fits, but it's a little snug for my taste. So I think I'm gonna add another 2 or 3 slip stitch rows just to be safe. I would rather it be just a little bit, because it's not gonna be loose, because it's, you know, it's a rib. So this is how big it is. Right now, that is really small. So if I add another 3 rows, it's not gonna make it too big, but I'd rather it be a little bit looser and not have these ribs stretched out 100% than I would it be too small. And I'm really concerned it's gonna be too small. Now, this is a paid for pattern on Ravelry, the Comet pattern. As I said, this is made entirely in slip stitches, and it uses a horizontal cable. So it took me about a half an hour to figure out the cable the first time. I think I've got it now. So the second mitt is gonna go a lot faster. So you basically have 1, 2, 3, 4 cables, and the 4th one is where your thumb hole goes. If you want to make this, the pattern is great. However, it is an advanced pattern. So I just want you to know what you're getting into. This is not a beginner crochet pattern. First it used slip stitches. Then you also do short row shaping. So there are short rows all in here to make it wider for this part of your hand. Like this. See how these kind of go sideways like that and then down into a triangle? That's because of the short row shaping. And it uses a horizontal slip stitch cable, which I had to sit down and have a really good think about before I could wrap my brain around how it was working. But it does work. The pattern does work. Just if you're a beginner, I would not recommend this. But if you have some crochet skills under your belt and some patience, especially for the first time you do the cable, I think this will be a fantastic pattern. It's really beautiful. And I probably won't have these next time because I'm gonna do my absolute best to get them finished before I podcast again. So I'm making 1 set of adult mitts. This is an adult mitt. So I need to add a few more rows to this, seam it up, and then make 1 more. And then she wanted me to make a kindergarten version as well. So for a small child, basically. The pattern is written in an adult size, and it does not have any modifications at all for children. So I think I'm gonna have to play around with it a lot. Maybe if I take off this cable right here for the thumb hole and make this one the thumb hole, that would mean that the mitt was only this big, which still may be a little bit long for a kindergartner, but maybe I could take off some stitches down at the bottom. We'll see. I don't know. I'm gonna have to play around with it and basically just design it, I guess, because it just doesn't come that way. And then for the seaming, I think I'm going to do a slip stitch seam. Now the pattern does have an invisible seam that it shows you how to do. However, this yarn is very grippy. See how fuzzy this is? Well, I don't know if you can really see that. It's very fuzzy. And it does not like to be frogged. So if you have some Knit Picks chroma, you better know what you're doing. Please, I highly recommend you know what you're doing because this yarn refuses to be frogged. You have to go very slowly and unpick it because the stitches, if this yarn, I feel like, it says you can machine wash it and tumble dry, which means it's not gonna felt, but it almost feels like a felting yarn because that's how grippy it is. So it is impossible to do the invisible seam with how grippy this yarn is because the yarn tangles up on itself because you have to have a big long stretch of yarn to do the whole seam. And I tried it, I got through about 6 stitches and the seam is invisible, but the yarn kept tangling because I had to pull this whole length through. It just would not work with this particular yarn. So I did a slip stitch seam and you can't see that on the outside either. You can just kind of see the seam on the inside, which means the mitts wouldn't be reversible, but I think that's fine because mitts aren't normally reversible at all anyways. So I'm excited. I think it's really beautiful. I'll have an update for you on whether I'm successful in making kindergarten mitts, but if you're looking for a pattern that will challenge you, I think this is the way to go. Work in progress number 3 is my crocheted knocker, which I'm gonna have to rip back a little bit because somehow, I did this on knit night on Tuesday, and somehow I got really distracted, I think, and started doing my increases wrong. So there's too many stitches here and not enough stitches here. And I'm not sure how that happened. I must have moved my marker to the wrong place. So I need to rip back, I think, probably to the beginning so that I can do these decreases correctly. But the front of it is fine. This is the front of one knitted knocker. This is an A cup. So I followed the pattern. I went down a hook size to get gauge because I just didn't like how big the holes were. But I think that seems like an A to me. I don't know. I don't have A's. But that seems like an A. So I've made one. I need to rip this back and make the back again, which it really didn't take that long. I was at knit night for 2 hours and I got this whole thing done. And I'm literally like 3 rows away from tying it off at the end. I just noticed that the stitch count is wrong. So that's where I need to rip back. So it'll probably take me 40 minutes to do the back, and then I can do the second one. And I have my Cloudborn Craftsy yarn, Pima Cotton DK, 100% cotton. My cakes in this bag. So I'm excited. I want to see how many I can make with my 200 grams. I'm gonna make a set of A's, a set of B's. I would like to make A, B, and C and see if I can get 3 sets out of 200 grams of yarn. I don't know if that's possible. Maybe it is. Maybe I'll have yarn left over to make another set of A's. Who knows? I don't know because I haven't made these before, but I know that you guys, there has already been some finished objects. In the Ravelry finished objects thread, someone has already made like 4 pairs, and then there's like 15 finished objects already in the finished object thread, which is so fantastic. And trust me when I say you want to have finished objects for this, because the prizes, you guys. If you've been following the last couple of episodes, you know that the prizes are amazing. And I have some more to show you in a couple minutes. But first, let me show you my last work in progress, which is living in my Santa bag that Ella made me from the No Catchy Name Crochet Talk podcast on YouTube. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you will have gotten a sneak peek of this. I am not going to show you the actual project because it is my next design. It is a C2C, which stands for corner to corner, crochet shawl. And it is going to be called the Heart Container Shawl, which if you play video games, that should ring a bell for you, because that is, the heart container is the life, it's basically your lives in the video game series Zelda. So the heart container is what holds Link's lives. And you get more heart containers as you go along, and everyone will know. Basically, you have all of these hearts up at the top, and then when you get hit with something, you lose half a heart. So you have half of it's red and half of it's white. So I am making a heart container shawl, and then it will also be turned into a baby blanket. So if you don't want to make a corner to corner shawl, you can turn it into a baby blanket and it will mirror. Not quite mirror, because I had to add a few extra rows to get the symmetry right. The yarn that I am using is Caron Simply Soft Party Yarn because it's sparkly. And I'm just using blue, black, red, and white. And I don't have the blue to show you because it's attached to the actual shawl, which I'm about halfway done with. But I can show you these 3 colors. Oh, let me put the white down because it's gonna blow out the whole screen. So this is the black. Look, you see that sparkle? That's crazy. And this is the red. You can even see the sparkly in the red. And I don't have the blue to show you, but so the main color of the shawl is blue. The hearts are gonna be outlined in black, and the middle of the heart is gonna be red. There will be several different ways you can make this shawl. You can make it with all of the hearts completely full, meaning you have all your lives. You can make it with one of the hearts having half a life in it, so half red and half white. And then you can make it with like a little white accent in each of the hearts. So I can't show it to you because it's not done, and I really want it to be a surprise. But I thought that it would be perfect to house in this bag because Ella is like the queen of corner to corner projects. So my corner to corner project is also living in a bag that Ella made, so it's perfect. So if you like video games, I think that you will like this shawl. It will be my next pattern design that will be released. I don't have a date yet. I've got to finish making the shawl, write up the pattern. I will need testers. So if you are interested in being a tester, I will probably need five testers for the shawl and baby blanket. Now, you would have to be able to get it done within probably 2 weeks. So if you're not good on deadlines, like I am really not good on deadlines with crochet projects, obviously because I'm working on this habitat cardigan for like 3 months now. So if you're not good at deadlines, please don't email me and say you want to be a tester. Just wait until the pattern comes out. But if you know how to do a corner to corner project already, so this is not brand new to you, you already need to know how to do corner to corner. You need to be okay with buying 4 different colors of yarn and be okay with like a 2-week turnaround time for this shawl. Then please comment down below or email me at thecozycottagecrochet@gmail.com. Actually, let me do this. You can do either of those, that's fine. But I'm also gonna open a thread in my Ravelry group for pattern testers. So if you would like to be a pattern tester, you just need to go into that thread, comment on it, and then say, hey, this is my name, this is where I'm from, this is how much experience I've had, and have you tested patterns before. Because I will be releasing more crochet patterns throughout this year. My goal is 4 for 2018, but if I can get more than that done, then fantastic. So I'm gonna need some testers, and I would love it if it was people who watch this podcast, because not only will you get the pattern before everyone else, you will also get when the pattern is officially released, after any changes or edits have been made, you will get that copy as well. So it would mean the world to me if you would like to be a tester. Please go into the Ravelry group and I will open a thread today before I upload this video. Okay? Oh, goodness. Okay, let's talk Happy Yarn Mail. Happy Yarn Mail is my acquisition segment. And I have some prizes to share with you for the Knitted Knockers Crochet Along. Number 1, and this blew me away. So one of the viewers of the podcast, her name is Mary Renji. She wanted to participate in the crochet along, but she can't really source the yarn, the correct yarn, where she lives. So she contacted me and said, for every person who has a finished object in the crochet along, you will be able to pick one of her crochet patterns for free. And she on Ravelry has about 25 crochet patterns, gorgeous shawls, gorgeous hats. They're just beautiful. I was completely blown away. And I emailed her back and I was like, are you sure? Do you really want to give every single, like you didn't mean like give one person a choice of your pattern. You meant every person? And she said, yes, every person. Because this is a cause that she really believes in. And that just really touches me, because I know I've talked about this at length before, so I'm not going to get super into it, but I can't imagine what it would be like to go through cancer and to have part of your body removed because it was hurting you. And then once it's removed and you're getting better and you fought this fight, you can't even, your clothes don't fit properly, you don't feel comfortable in your own skin, you don't feel confident anymore, and I can't imagine what that's like. But we can make a difference. And I think that we have this special ability to make a difference because we are always spreading the love and spreading the warmth through our yarn and through our crochet and knitting for that matter. So for Mary to say for every person who has a finished object, they can pick one of her patterns for free, that just touched me so much. To know that there's other people out there who believe in this cause as much as I do. And thank you so much, Mary. Like, that's so sweet of you. So the way I'm gonna do this is, if you have a finished object, you must post it in the Ravelry group, because you have to have a Ravelry username to be eligible for this prize. And once everything is closed at the end of April, I will get a list of everyone who has at least one finished object in the finished object thread, and I will send it over to Mary, who will then contact you to give you a pattern prize, okay? So you don't need to contact her. I will handle that all at the end once the finished object thread are closed, but know that if you have made a knitted knocker or a crocheted knocker, you will be able to get a pattern from her. So thank you, Mary. And for the rest of you, if you aren't able to participate in this crochet along, please go online and check out her design. She's got, like I said, some gorgeous shawls, and you know I'm a fan of shawls, okay? So I'm gonna put the link in the drop down below to her Ravelry store. Go look at her patterns, and I would love it if you guys would go and support her, because to give away that many patterns is huge to me. Like, that's just huge. So please go buy her patterns, because I think she deserves to have some love sent to her, because she is being so generous with us. But that's not all. A couple more prizes have come in. One is Lisa, who is a longtime viewer of the podcast, sent me this beautiful skein of Dream in Color yarn. It's Jilly with Cashmere, which is a 70-20-10. So 70% merino, 20% cashmere, 10% nylon yarn in the colorway, I don't know. Doesn't say. Or it says, but it's kind of like marked out. So anyways, it's beautiful. So this is going to be a prize for the Knitted Knockers Crochet Along. Thank you, Lisa. Also, Mary Grace, who is also another really long-time viewer of the podcast. Thank you so much, you guys. Sent me a crochet hook set, and I think I might actually pair these together because I think they go perfectly. So this might be a pattern package. This is a handmade crochet hook case with a little sheep on the front, and inside we have a needle gauge, a measuring tape, and a full set of bamboo crochet hooks, which are super nice, and they're very smooth. So if you have been wanting to try out bamboo crochet hooks, you could get a whole set. Well, thank you so much, Mary. That was so sweet of you. And I really do think I'm gonna pair this together as a prize. I think they go together perfectly. Oh, there's one more. So Joanne, I know all of you are watching because you're viewers, and can I just say that the people who have donated to this crochet along, they're individuals. They're not massive companies. They're not just trying to get their name out there. They're people who actually believe in this cause. Like the last two things I just showed and the thing I'm about to show are people who want to spread the love because they personally have been touched by breast cancer, either themselves or someone that they know. And all of these prizes have been dedicated in the name of someone. So that really touches my heart as well. So Joanne sent 3 balls of this Knit Picks Felici yarn in the colorway Beyond the Wall. It is a blue-gray self-striping yarn. So there's 3 50-gram balls of this. Now you could get an average size pair of socks out of 2 balls easily, but with 3 balls you could make giant man socks. And this is a man sock color. Now you don't have to. You can make a shawl. You can do whatever you want if you win. But I'm just saying it's got enough. And she also sent this adorable crochet hook case that has cats on it, and inside we have a full set of crochet hooks. So all of these crochet hooks could be yours. It also comes with some knitting cable needles and some darning needles. And then in here we've got stitch markers and a row counter. And then on this side, it still has a pocket. You get another, like a little, you can put whatever you want in there. And then it has a measuring tape. So this will be a prize as well. My heart is so full. That's all I can say about that. I don't know how else to say thank you to everyone. Just the outpouring of love and support for this crochet along. I'm so excited that you guys are so excited about getting to spread the warmth and spread the love to other people and really make a difference in someone's life just by making something as simple as a crocheted boob. So thank you times a million. I have 2 more things to show you. One is the second installment of the yarn club. So if you remember, I joined a yarn club with Molly Klein Design called the 90s Boy Bands Yarn Club. And I got one already, which was the blue and black one, and it was based on the Backstreet Boys, back in black and blue. Can't remember. So I got my second installment. So this is skein number 2. I will get one more next month, which I'm excited about. So her Molly Klein Design, this is her tag. She has Sweet Tea Yarns, and I'll put the link to her Etsy shop down below as well. This is the colorway In Sync Just Got Paid. And it's this lovely green. It's kind of blowing out a little bit, the white parts. Maybe I'll put this part. And it's got a little bit of brown, a little bit of dark green here. So it's made to look like money, obviously, because they just got paid. So this is interesting because this is not a color I would normally gravitate towards. I'm not usually a green person, but I really like this. So I think that's the beauty of a yarn club. You don't know what you're getting, but it turns out it's beautiful. So I'm really, really happy. And this is a sparkly yarn. It's got gold stellina in it. So I'm pretty thrilled with that. And then finally, Melody of the Melody Crochet podcast on YouTube and I did a swap. So we made each other magic yarn balls. Now, if you don't know what a magic yarn ball is, because I did not know when we first started talking about this, is you basically just get a bunch of little things and you take some cheap yarn and you wrap it all up. And so when the person gets it, they have to unroll this yarn ball and little surprises keep popping out at them. So I'm not going to show you everything she sent me. She sent me a whole bag of stuff, which it was so sweet. And I mean, I sent her one too as well. But she sent me, first of all, this gorgeous yarn, which I know that she hand dyed. It smells delightful. And it's blue and purple, which is amazing. So, and pink, it's got pink. So this is fantastic. This I thought was too adorable not to show you. It is a tape measure, but it's a bunny and you push its nose and then the tape measure goes back in. She handmade me a washcloth, which I'm going to use. I'm gonna go put this in the bathroom. I just didn't yet because I wanted to show you. And she also sent me some Star Wars fabric, which will definitely be turned into a bag to hold things. So it's like Valentine's Day Star Wars fabric. And there were so many other little things in there. Just cute. There's like a pink fuzzy flamingo pen, which will definitely be going with me to work. And just all kinds of adorable things. However, she also sent me some stitch markers. And I don't know if you can tell, these are handmade. That is a granny square. So how cool is that? Let's see if I can do this. And I actually last night, literally, was it last night or the night before? I was looking everywhere because I have a little tin of stitch markers. Gone, no idea where they are. And that tin only held, I knew it only had a couple left because I have so many works in progress going at the moment that I'm like running out of stitch markers, and I couldn't find one. So I ended up using like a safety pin. So now I have some beautiful stitch markers to use, and they're granny squares, which is basically the coolest thing ever. So thank you so much, Melody. I know she got her package too and liked it, so it was just super fun to be able to put together things that you think someone else will like. It was super fun. Okay, are you guys ready? Whew, we're almost out of time, but I did want to talk about the Treasure Island shawl because so many of you have asked. I've gotten some emails, I've gotten some Instagram comments and some YouTube comments saying, how does it even work? How do you go about designing a pattern? How do you decide if you're gonna sell it or give it away for free? Like, what is the process? So I will just tell you what my process was, because I've never written a pattern before this one. I had this yarn, which was so lovely, and it was gifted to me by Lacey of the Hooked on Owls podcast on YouTube. And for the corner to corner shawl that I am making, I had an idea already. Like, I've sketched that out and I'm going based on that. For this, I literally just sat down and started crocheting. I had no idea where I was going. I just started increasing, and then I was like, oh, I know what I'm gonna do. So I literally just crocheted the whole thing, took notes as to what I was doing the whole time, and then once I had completed it, I then typed up the pattern, which, let me tell you, is really tedious. And you have no idea how much you can miss just going from my handwritten notes to typing it in. Like, a comma or a period or a letter in the wrong place can change the entire meaning of your pattern. So I made it, I typed it up. I did everything that I thought I should when typing it up. And then what I did is I made it again to check my math. Math is not my strongest suit, so I made this one in a solid color because I wanted people to be able to see the lace pattern. And I made this one in worsted weight yarn. So I made it again, and it's a good thing I made it again because there was a mistake. My math was off by 1 stitch at one point in the shawl, and it affected every other row after that. So it was like 40 rows of an incorrect stitch count, which I caught because I made it again. So I don't know, maybe I won't make every project I design again, but if there's math involved, I probably will. So I then re-edited all the math. I then called for test crocheters. So I had 5 test crocheters, and I gave them a deadline of the end of February, and almost all of them met that deadline, so it was great. And then they gave me some wonderful feedback of things that I just wouldn't have thought about it. Like, for example, Ella, thank you so much for testing this. She mentioned, hey, maybe you would like to include a stitch count at the end of every row. And I was like, you know what? I would like to include a stitch count at the end of every row in the pattern, because I think if you want to check your work, that's a great idea. And I had the stitch counts for every row because I had worked out all of the math. And like Lacey caught that on one row I had I was missing a stitch, basically. And I have read this pattern like 100 times. Did I catch that? No. So test crochet, very important. It also gave me some idea of how much yarn people were using, because I do crochet very tightly. So originally I had thought maybe you could make this with a skein of like 420 yards. I think probably you need 450 yards of fingering weight yarn to make this shawl, unless you are a tight crocheter like I am. Now, if you're using any other size of yarn, it doesn't matter because you're gonna have to use more than one ball. But for this to be a one skein project, you either need to crochet tightly, like I do, or you need to just have a larger skein of fingering weight yarn. Like the skein that I made this with was 512 yards, and I probably had about 60, 70 yards left over. So the gauge was very important. Once I had all the test crochet back, I then sent it out for tech editing. Now the tech editor that I chose was someone I've been following on Instagram for quite a long time. I know a lot of people have asked me, like, where do you find a tech editor? I don't know. I found her by accident. I liked her feed months and months ago, and then randomly I noticed that she had mentioned tech editing. So I'd sent her a message and said, hey, do you do knit tech editing, or do you also do knit and crochet? Because I have a crochet pattern. And she said that she did do crochet tech editing as well. I will put her Instagram down below. It's Rogue River Fiber Studio. So you can go follow her if you want to tech edit, or just to see her beautiful pictures of knitting. And she charges $25 an hour for tech editing. This pattern took 1.5 hours to tech edit. So that's like $48 basically, and her turnaround time was less than a week. So I'm perfectly happy with that. I was very happy with all of the suggestions she gave me. There was one row in the pattern where she was like, this is not adding up, and I think that you meant this, which is true. I did mean that. And none of the testers caught that either. So she basically checked the math in every single row. She edited it for grammar and style and consistency. So if I used one abbreviation in a place and I didn't use the same abbreviation to refer to the same stitch in a later place, she noticed that. There was all kinds of feedback on the form. So I was really impressed by that. And then I uploaded it to Ravelry. Now, if you have never uploaded to Ravelry before, you have to go to the contributor tab, and then you have to input all this information. So I thought long and hard about whether or not I was going to offer this as a free pattern or make it a paid for pattern. I know everyone loves a good free pattern, and I also love a good free pattern, as you all know, because I make plenty of them. However, let me just tell you what I've been thinking, and you can tell me your thoughts. Most of the people on YouTube have ads at the beginning of every video. And at the moment, I have decided not to do that. Personally, I find YouTube ads a little bit annoying because there's so many of them. Whenever I am watching a crochet or a knitting podcast, I do always try to sit through the entire ad, because I know that the podcaster does get a little tiny bit of money from that, and they get more if you watch the whole ad. So I always try to sit through the ad if it's someone that I know and love. But I do find them a little bit irritating. So what I've decided to do is, I'm not saying this is never going to change, but at least at this time, I'm not going to have any ads on my YouTube channel. It's going to continue to stay ad-free, because I really love doing this, and I love connecting with you guys. It brings me so much happiness and so much joy, and I don't feel the need to be paid for that. However, I want to design patterns, and I want to put out a good product. And in order to do that, because I don't have any other revenue coming in the sense that I don't have a blog, so there's no ad revenue for that. I'm not putting ads on YouTube. I don't have an Etsy shop, things like that. Tech editing costs money. And I really wanted to put out a professional pattern. So I didn't want you guys to have a pattern that had mistakes in it. And if it had not been pattern tested and tech edited, it would have had mistakes. Because I'm human, right? But because I was able to spend $50 on a tech edit and have people who are willing to test the pattern, it's now what I would consider a professional quality pattern. And I really want to put out professional quality patterns for you. So I've decided that I'm not going to have any ads on the YouTube, but I will be selling any patterns that I purchase, any patterns that I come up with on Ravelry. Now this pattern, I believe, to me, it's a simple pattern. So it is at sale for $3.50, which I think is reasonable for a pattern. I'm not going to say all of my patterns are going to be $3.50, but I also probably am not going to make any crazy expensive patterns either. So if you're looking for a way to support the channel, you can buy this pattern on Ravelry. You don't have to. You never have to feel obligated just because you watch this podcast to buy anything that I put on Ravelry. I would love it if you made this, because to me, it just makes me so happy. And I know some people have made it already, like Faye from the Crochet Circle podcast, and Charlie from the Love Charlie podcast, and Ella, of course, and Lacey, because they tested it for me. And then Melody of the Melody Crochet podcast made it as well. So it's so surreal to think that like something I designed is out there in the world, like getting worn. That is insane to me, and it makes me so excited. So I'm not trying to make this my job. I don't want to quit and become a pattern designer. I have a job already. I'm not trying to make this my full-time income stream. But of course, podcasting, I think that if I were not podcasting, I would not go through so many projects. And of course, yarn costs money, right? So what I have done with all of the money I've made in commissions this year so far, and all of the money that has been made from pattern sales so far for this Treasure Island shawl, is I've saved it because in May I am going with my friend Caitlin to Stitchcation 2018, which if you've been around for a long time, you will know that last year we went on a vacation for crafting. My best friend is part of a sewing circle, and they rent a big house and they sew for like 2.5 days straight. So this year they're going again, and I got invited again, even though I don't really sew. I sew a tiny bit. So I'm going to take my crochet and go. And so between the commissions that I've had this year and pattern sales so far, I was able to pay for that amount of money, which is $300 for the whole weekend, which is from Wednesday night until Sunday, which I think is a good deal. I was able to pay for that. So now I can go without having to worry about taking that money out of my budget. So I'm not going to promise I'm going to tell you what I'm doing with the money that's made from pattern sales every time, but I just want you to know that I am not in any way trying to squeeze money out of people. I can promise you that anything made from pattern sales will go straight back into yarn. It will go for content for the podcast. It'll go to pay for Stitchcation. My next goal is to save enough money between commissions and that to buy the yarn. I don't know if you guys remember, there's a amazing hooded crocheted cabled cardigan that was in Interweave magazine a few months ago. I want to buy the actual yarn that pattern calls for, which is it's a sweater's quantity of yarn, and it's not hand dyed, but it's not cheap. So that's my next goal of things I'm going to save for. So I feel like this is really long and really rambly explanation, but basically I want to put out a professional product to you, and I will never probably host a blog. I'm never going to do tutorial videos. It's just not who I am. But what I love to do is talk to you, and I love to crochet. So this podcast is going to remain ad-free for the foreseeable future, and I will do my best to price any crochet patterns that I come up with reasonably. So if you're looking for a way to support the podcast, that's how you can do it. And if you make this, please send me a photo. I am basically bursting with excitement. Faye just put up, I know she's at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival. She was wearing my shawl at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and I literally almost died from excitement. So I can't contain myself. I'm really sorry. So I think that's about all I'm going to say today, because it's been quite a long time since I started recording, and I need to edit this and get it uploaded because it's St. Patrick's Day. So I need to go, I guess, do something festive. And I think I'm going to wear this all day. I know it's not the typical green, but technically this is Karen Simply soft green colorway, so it counts. And also I have green in one of my tattoos on my leg, so I'm never without green. Haha. Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop now. If you loved this episode, or even if you just liked it, you can hit the thumbs up. If you'd like to be kept up to date on future episodes as I post them, we should be on our regular 2-week posting schedule from now on. Now that I've gone back from the conference that I was at, hit the subscribe button down below and it will let you know when I upload a new video. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to email me at the Cozy Cottage Crochet. And Sam, please email me so I can get your information over to Quaylen and we can get you those beautiful shawl patterns for you to make. Until next time, happy crafting, happy crocheting. Love you all so much. Bye!